Inside the Manosphere presents itself as a critical documentary, but it's really just a hit piece. And it's not even a very good hit piece because, frankly speaking, Louis Theroux is out of his depth. Don't get me wrong, I do enjoy the occasional hit piece, now and again, but I didn't like this one. And I think the reason I didn't like this one is that I don't despise the Manosphere guys so much that I don't want to know where they're coming from or what sort of societal developments have made this sort of industry possible in the first place, or who their followers are, and what their backstory is. And if this whole phenomenon is a reaction to something, which it probably is, to what? What is the Manosphere a reaction to? Don't expect Louis Theroux to answer or even ask any of these questions. And by the way, I'm not defending the Justin Wallers and Sneakos and HS Tiki-Takis of this world. I don't like him. I don't follow them. I think they are, indeed, in certain ways, horrible people. But I also think that they are a symptom of something. And what that something is, I think is important to understand. And when a documentarian of Louis Theroux's caliber wades into this swampy field, I think it's fair to expect him to get into some of the underlying issues as well. And not just all the scummy stuff on the surface. You know, issues like, how is masculinity portrayed in the media? How are young boys treated in schools? Is the justice system biased against men? The sort of issues that might fuel male resentment. These issues are easy to mock because they point at male inadequacy. But that's sort of the point, isn't it? Why is male suffering something that is so effortlessly mocked with no negative social repercussions to the person doing the mocking? What does that say about how men are viewed in our society? Around the 37-minute mark, there's a scene that really struck me. Louis speaks to two boys, two young guys, followers of some of these Manosphere types, clearly young and impressionable, but talking about taking ownership of their lives. Theroux stands there, judgmental, clearly not trying to set them at ease, clearly not wanting them to shine in any way in that interview. Those kids probably thought they were helping explain this thing they were really passionate about, and Louis was just needling them with leading questions, trying to make them say something that would make his point. There was no empathy, no honesty. At some point, one of the boys says, "Society doesn't want to see an empowerment of men." The camera cuts away, and ominous music starts playing. Why are you playing ominous music? A good interviewer would have dug deeper, dissected that statement, found out why he feels that way. How has this person experienced the world to make them say that? One of these boys apparently was homeless at some point and pulled himself out of it. He had lost his brother to some tragedy. Don't tell me there's no story here, but all we're getting is some splashing around on the surface, and that's it. So as far as I'm concerned, Inside the Manosphere fails as a documentary. But you know what? Let's just lower the bar all the way down, and let's just accept and enjoy this for what it is. A hit piece on the Manosphere superstar influencers, many of whom may or may not engage in all sorts of scams and grifts. It's not a deep dive, not a real documentary, just a hit piece on the worst that the Manosphere has produced. The problem is, it doesn't even do that. There's two reasons for why this documentary fails even as a hit piece. The first one is, Louis couldn't really do his usual signature move. He tends to sort of ask leading questions and then stare down his subjects, and then just really let the awkwardness settle and have everybody just sit in that awkwardness. That's the money shot. Him staring at his victims while they squirm in discomfort. These guys, unfortunately, were too savvy for that. They're around cameras all the time, and they know how the game works. They understand editing, and they knew what he was doing. And so when he tried his signature move on them, they simply called him out, and it fell flat. So his signature move was out. But more importantly, the dudes that Louis Theroux interviewed came equipped with their own cameras, most of them. All of a sudden, Louis wasn't the only guy in the room with a camera anymore. I think that was significant for two reasons. Number one, he knew he couldn't edit the footage any way he wanted to anymore. That power was gone. And two, he was being filmed by a potentially hostile crew that now had editing powers over him. Those guys were not only filming, but they could start editing and clipping any which way they wanted to. In the back of his mind, Louis must have realized that these guys had the upper hand over him on social media because they actually had a following on social media and he didn't. And he certainly didn't have access to their following. His discomfort was obvious. At some point, he even complains that he finds it sinister that he's being filmed. I'm sorry, isn't that what you do all the time for a living? Filming people? You find it sinister when it happens to you? Anyway, look, again, I'm not defending these guys. The whole commercial aspect of this, where some of these guys are becoming millionaires off of young men who are desperate to emulate a lifestyle that is almost certainly going to be off limits to most of them, it's an ugly thing. It's not pretty. But generally speaking, the Manosphere has an origin and an evolution. It didn't come out of nowhere. And to present it as essentially a product of online toxicity and scams and not much else, it's not honest, it's not interesting, it's not insightful, and it's actually quite manipulative. Considering the importance in our society of changing gender dynamics, I think this topic really deserved a deep dive. The fact that you didn't even try, and I'm looking at you, Netflix, at Louis Theroux, the fact that you didn't even try says a lot about where you stand in all of this, and sort of confirms the lack of attention to male issues that so many young men in that sphere claim is why they feel marginalized, and why they turn to the Manosphere in the first place. The young guy mentioned male empowerment, and you played ominous music. Would you have played that same ominous tune if a woman had spoken about female empowerment? I think we all know the answer. See you next time.